Welcome, everyone, to AFSA's Industry Icon Series. Today, we're joined by Rochelle McClanahan, Chief Financial Officer and Compliance Officer for Brundage Management Company. Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Danielle, how are you today?
So good. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in this. You know, I love doing things like this, so it's a great opportunity.
We love having you at things like this. And I should mention for everyone listening that Rochelle is our former chair of the Women's Leadership Council. So we appreciate your leadership as part of all the leadership roles you've taken as part of AFSA. So tell us, Rochelle, a little bit about how you ended up in the consumer credit industry, because it's a pretty interesting background, as I recall.
Yeah, so I did not grow up thinking I was going to be in the consumer credit industry or that I would be working in any sort of capacity like I am now. I actually did major in accounting and economics in undergrad, and becoming an accountant was the least interesting thing I thought I would ever end up doing. I actually started pursuing something completely different, and then I decided that I needed to eat and pay rent. And so I got a job with a local manufacturing company as a baby accountant, and decided I did kind of like the puzzles that I was solving as an accountant. And I ended up getting transferred to Raleigh, North Carolina, which is interesting only because I was sitting in my office in my cubicle one day, and I was number crunching and doing some analysis, and a headhunter just randomly called me. And so I went to visit with him about a position that seemed kind of interesting, and I ended up becoming controller for an outdoor amphitheater. So I started working in the live music industry. And I relocated a few times and took on more and more responsibilities. And overall, I spent about 10 years in the live concert industry, working for what is now the largest producer and promoter of live music events in the world. And I'll leave it at that. Um, it was really a super cool gig. But I had a young child at home, and I was traveling and working just a ton. And I decided that I was ready for a change. I was ready for a new challenge because I was kind of maxed out where I was if I wanted to stay in Texas at least. And so I started casually interviewing with other companies, and I was in the middle of an interview with a consulting company, and all of a sudden the interviewer paused and she started telling me about a controller position I would be perfect for, which is really strange, right? I'm interviewing for one job and the interviewer starts talking about a different job. And I initially thought it was maybe a prank. It was a tactic just to see how I would react. But it actually did turn out that she had a friend who was also a recruiter and was hiring for Brundage Management Company. And so, I interviewed with the executives, and it just really felt like a great culture fit. It felt like the opportunity that I was looking for at that time. I had zero experience in the consumer credit industry, but debits are debits and credits are credits, and, bean counting is bean counting. And so here I am 16 and a half years later. And over the years, I really began to develop a deep understanding of the people that we serve and how necessary our product is for some of those people. I really truly believe that everyone deserves access to safe and affordable forms of credit. And, my industry, the traditional installment lending industry, fills a niche for customers that don't necessarily have access to what we would consider mainstream lending sources. So that's how I got here.
Who outside of your family do you see as a main influence or mentor to you in your career?
When I moved to San Antonio, the general manager of the venue that I came here to help open had this motto, and let me explain after I tell you what it is. He would always say, "There's more than one way to skin a cat." And he was a reformed accountant, and what he taught me was that there are shades of gray. Not everything is black and white. And in order to be a good business partner, you have to help, you have to learn to help your customers achieve their goals, right? So it's not just external customers, but as an accountant, as a financial professional, most of my customers are internal. And so in this case, my customer was operations. So how can we be compliant and how can we follow proper accounting rules, but think creatively to accomplish our objectives despite both internal and external limitations? So, so that motto and that, sort of that credo that I would help him run his business. It really helped develop my love for understanding the story behind the numbers and how we can be strategic yet compliant.
Do you see that as the best career advice you've ever received? There's more than one way to skin a cat, or is there any other career advice that you think is the best advice you've received from someone?
So that was probably the best career advice, just in terms of helping develop my partnership with the other um, individuals and departments within the
Hmm.
organization. But this is super random, but this is some of my favorite advice that I ever received. And I honestly think it's something that a taxi cab driver told me years and years
Uh-huh.
ago. And honestly, it was probably a long cab ride, and we were sharing a lot. And I think I had shared some sort of struggle I was having. And I don't exactly remember the context, but the cab driver said, "Life's too long to blah, 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 blah," which is really, it's the converse of life's too short, right? And so it's really not that profound, but for some reason it really resonated with me because we regularly do say life's too short. But this kind of creates this sense of urgency and feeling like there's only so many things that we can get done in a short period of time, in this finite period of time. And so we need to make sacrifices. But in reality, life is this vast canvas, right? And it's up to us
Hmm.
to sort of create this strategic plan for our life. And so, what I think it means to us is life's too long to pass up opportunities. Life's too long to settle for a position or a situation you're in or to not take chances. Life is way too long to think that you're in this one and done situation. And personally, I did undergraduate, I did MBA, and then about a year and a half ago, I started on a second graduate degree. And I only have a semester and I only have 1.5 classes left. So it just like the time flew by and I'm already planning sort of my next project. So don't look at it like you're limited and you have this set period of time in which to accomplish things, but set your goals high.
What's your second graduate degree? And after your undergrad and MBA, there's only, I mean, are you going to be like a doctor or a lawyer, or is there something else?
No, no, no. No, I don't have that kind of ambition. No, it's
Life's not that long.
not right now. Not right now. I don't. No, it's a Master of Jurisprudence, so essentially
Okay.
legal studies through Texas
Hmm.
A&M Law School, and I'm
Hmm.
loving it. And I'm going to be really sad when the program's over, but I will not be sad having a few extra hours each day.
Absolutely. Okay, so then is that the advice you would give to your 20-year-old, 22-year-old self? Or if you're looking back at what you know from where you know now to what you knew then, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, first off, I would tell my 22-year-old self to start yoga that day. Don't wait 20 years because it's too late. Um, I would also tell my 22-year-old self to start seeking out mentors right away. They don't have to be in the industry you're in because that's likely going to change. I mean, my story, my industry and career path changed, others' career paths change. But find those people who are both your biggest champion and your harshest critics. Those people who will ask you the tough questions, people who will provide you the best feedback and push you to do things that you're uncomfortable with. Cultivate relationships with people who help you grow and to become the best version of yourself. And then, I'm reiterating a lot of what the other women have said on the podcast, but be kind to yourself. No self bullying. Embrace your flaws and your imperfections. And we don't have to know everything right then and exactly what you want to do with your life right out of college or trade school or whatever it is. We just don't we simply don't have all the information and tools to do that. And remember, life's too long to be pigeonholed into one path.
So looking into your crystal ball, how do you predict the consumer credit industry will change in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see the beginnings of?
Well, I think that lenders will have to continue to be transformative, and not just meet customers where they are today, but they're also going to have to guide them to where they can be most productive and efficient. As we all know, the last few years have been extremely disruptive, yet exciting, because as lenders, we're continuing to have to refine ways of providing our services in the manner that customers need and expect. With technology, customers have learned to become strong financial advocates for themselves. So continuing and enhancing our education of our customers will be even more important, just particularly as we continue to face more strenuous regulatory scrutiny. And I'd like to think that eventually, on my organization's slice of the industry will be viewed as a complementary service among all the other lending product offerings, rather than have to defend ourselves so frequently. At a macro level, organizations will become stronger at embracing disruption and change, and also anticipating it so they can proactively deliver the products and services that customers demand. Lenders will continue to leverage data analytics to make smarter and more responsible lending decisions, which further supports our narrative that we should be considered safe and affordable lenders of choice for our customers. And then at more of a micro level, organizations will just become better at developing leaders, people who can lead through the change and lead through the disruption. And I'm really emphasizing lead because I think it invokes a sense of being proactive, while managing invokes a sense of being reactive. And, we can all serve a leadership role regardless of our title. And I really see organizations harnessing that thought process to develop its employees at all levels, and really empowering them through the concept of a rising tide lifts all boats.
Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us today. That was so informative and a lot of food for thought.
Thank you, Danielle. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to AFSA's Industry Icon series. We appreciate you being here. Subscribe to AFSA's Extra Credit podcast wherever you get your podcasts.